Hi, it's November 8th. Welcome to the Vyre Business News Global Midweek Update. The Nasdaq and S&P are edging lower with all eyes on Fed Chair Jerome Powell's remarks later on today. For more clues as to what the U.S. monetary policy could be, we're imagining it's going to be a bit more restrictive. There's been some hints to that. European shares were little changed, while Japan's Nikkei ended lower. Oil prices fell on concerns over waning demand in the United States and China, and the U.S. dollar has climbed against a basket of other currencies. But interestingly, JP Morgan's analyst did a deep dive into the job growth, which is kind of the go-to political approach for pundits to show that the economy is booming. And they acknowledge that there is slowing and that there is weakness in the data behind the numbers. Last month's 150,000 jobs were mainly in local government and non-cyclicals. And there's a pretty consistent trend upwards of unemployment growth that they see with a weakening economy. Credit conditions have also tightened following the recent failure of two regional banks, which could make it harder for small businesses and households to access funding. We're seeing that across the board. Canada has more sensitivity than the US. Where we are seeing that, and we'll be touching on it later on, is in the secondary market for cars, so used cars, as well as leasing a brand new car. But small businesses like restaurants and bars have been the main driver of growth. And surveys from the Institute of Supply Management this week suggested that the labor market was fraying at the edges. Another thing of interest, because it's been a hot topic in Canada, is that their emissions reduction plan not only is flawed, but they had intended to cut greenhouse gas output by 40 to 45% below 2005 levels by 2030. So they will not reach that target. And we're going to have a separate video on that because I think you're going to find that a bit interesting from the higher ups in the world. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook on Wednesday called out a number of international risks, including persistent inflationary pressures abroad, which she said threatens global financial stability. Also, mortgage apps fell about 2.1%, which is not surprising. Who wants to go get a new mortgage right now at these rates? But there's some interesting things with specific companies. Amazon, they have their large language model, hoping to rival OpenAI and Alphabet. So their model is going to be called Olympus, has 2 trillion parameters, and it could make it one of the largest ones yet. OpenAI's GPT-4 model is probably the best known and best available one right now, and it has 1 trillion parameters. So the person spearheading that for Amazon is Rohit Prasad, who was former head of Alexa. So that should be interesting to see the competition pushing forward in that space. eBay forecasted fourth quarter revenue and profits below the estimates from Wall Street. And remember, a lot of these estimates that Wall Street gave out were revised down. And we do that often because you want to beat estimates. So when you see a weakening economy, all the analysts, CEOs of companies will acknowledge that. They'll revise them down. They'll look at what's a bit more consistent or hopeful. That way you come out with good news. You say, oh, we beat estimates. So it's something to keep in mind. But we're in November. This is the holiday season. It's a big time for the likes of eBay, as well as Amazon and retail performers going into big holiday seasons. Now, another interesting thing that's being acknowledged within the overall scope of the theme of news is a slowing down in EV demand. And that's obviously very worrisome. This brings us back to, lease rates. So a year ago, you had new and used car rates at 4.1% and 7.4%, which is still a bit high, certainly on the used car. Now we're looking at 6.5 and 10%. So there's not a lot of people rushing out to go buy a car right now. On top of that, there's an overall theme out there of concern as to charging stations as we adopt more cars. Also, there's a lot of competition. There's new cars with different batteries. What are they going to look like? So the market is growing. It's got long-term growth, obviously, but right now we're seeing a bit of a pullback because the economy is not looking good. I don't care how many people want to go out there and promote that it is. I'm going to stick on the side of whether it's Larry Fink, Solomon from Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan's, Jamie Dimon, Ray Dalio. I'll stick with all of those kind of big legends in the business and put a cause for caution moving forward. So General Motors is recalling 950 driverless cars. It's their Cruise model in the United States, following one of its robo taxis had an accident, had an incident. This is important because Kathy Wood's big bet is on this driverless car future, which undoubtedly will come, but that's where she has a big push on Tesla. So it's interesting to see this pause by GM. There's a whole bunch of work that's being done on this, and this is all part of the exciting future that we have. Quite frankly, if we could get that nailed down, I would love that if we had driverless cars. It's just, it's something that needs a lot more work, but it's something that we're not quite there yet. The future is still the future. It's not here. Lucid and Rivian, also EV companies, lesser known, but very impressive companies. They've increased their production forecast. It's still, smaller, but their upbeat forecast is positive for this the industry that is taking a bit of a hit right now. And it's nice to see these other names fighting for competition against the likes of Tesla. Meta, so it said that they ought to be discussing AI and digital methods specifically around ads on social media and AI. So this obviously is a big thing for them because they were instrumental with a lot of misinformation, specifically political misinformation in the last election. We're coming into another election cycle, and they want to be sure that they're be on the right side as possible. And I'm not picking on any social media companies. It would be exceptionally difficult trying to find an algorithm without bias. Now, of course, they're all biased. They're ridiculously biased. But even if you're trying to do it with as little bias as possible to find out what's real or not, it's not an easy job. But we're going to have to work through these ugly periods until we get down to really positive use of social media, as well as political campaigning and just ads in general. There's a lot of misinformation out there. We all know that. HSBC Group, their CEO, Noel Quinn, said the bank has seen a 70% lift in business from Chinese clients looking to diversify their models outside of mainland China. China's seeing a bit of a pullback, a lot of concern. We're going to have a report out regarding the real estate debacle that's been ongoing for years there. But China has lots of positives and a lot of negatives. That goes without saying. Coinbase Global, cryptocurrency exchange, estimates third quarter revenue to beat third quarter revenue, but saw trading volumes decline at a pretty staggering rate. Trading volumes at the exchange for the third quarter came in at 11 billion compared to 26 billion last year. Bayer, this is another interesting one. Seeking to overturn a recent 175 million verdict in favor of a man who alleged the company's Roundup. Now, Roundup is Monsanto. If you're younger, you may not know Monsanto, you may not know Roundup, but if you're at my age group, you know what Monsanto and Roundup is. Bayer bought Roundup or Monsanto, so they took on all of the future litigation that was going to come with that. This was quite a telling case. I watched some of it on YouTube. Very interesting. And the 175 million verdict, some people thought, oh, that's a bit of a win. It's not, because it would open the gates towards further lawsuits. But I think the prosecutor put it into context saying, listen, that was first year, their first years, half of their revenue was 175 million 23 years ago. So if you're a company and you're doing practices that are not great, and you only have to pay 1.5 years of revenue for 23 years of sales, you're going to do it every time. So that's a bit of a negative way to kind of look at, say, pharmaceutical drug companies in general, or other products. This is their risk management teams. They look to see what's the cost of litigation, what's the cost of issues happening, and what's the cost on the profit margins. And sometimes they'll go ahead with the profit margins. Anyway, interesting week as usual. Lots developing. We're still waiting to see what it's going to take to get the economy moving. Most likely, it's going to be people waiting on the sidelines until interest rates come down. We're not going to see that anytime in the near future. But on the good side, we're factoring in all these things things are still relatively strong. I mean, I can sound pessimistic, but they're strong overall for as bad a situation we're in. And I think that's the best way to look at it. We're hanging in there. It isn't like we're off the edge of a cliff. And we're going to have an actual interesting reaction video as well for you. Check it out. That highlights one of our elites talking about climate change as well. That might put things in a bit better perspective for people. Anyways, it's been an interesting week. Thanks for joining us. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And we look forward to having a bit of a spicy interaction with you.